right, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. Listen in and level up. I have a great episode for you today, but first, as always, let's get through the show notes. If you're not following the Facebook page, head over to Facebook, type SideQuest Fitness into the search bar, and like the page. There, you're going to get updates on podcast episodes, articles when they get posted, and you're going to get a brand new taco recipe every Tuesday for taco camp. Plus lots of other shenanigans and nerd talk throughout the week, so make sure you head over to Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is SideQuestFM. If you want to see some cool videos and random stuff on Instagram as well, you can follow me on Instagram, same handle, SideQuestFM, or follow me on Snapchat, SideQuestFit. Follow me there. Send me your questions. I want to get all the questions from you, help you as much as I can on your fitness journey or your journey in life, whatever it may be. But head over to Snapchat, SideQuestFit. Follow me there. You get a little more personal, in-depth look at the shenanigans I get into throughout every day. But I do love getting questions from the community, so please send them out to me. If you have not left a review for the podcast, please head over to iTunes. If you're not listening on iTunes and you listen on SoundCloud or Stitcher, leave a review there as well. When you leave reviews, it helps me move up the charts on the iTunes store so that more people can see and hear the amazing guests that I've had on and have on each and every single week. So make sure you head over there. And don't forget, if you haven't picked up your copy of the 7 Principles of Fat Loss, head over to sidequestfitness.com/7 principles, and you can pick up your copy of the 7 Principles of Fat Loss. These are the same 7 principles I follow each and every day and teach my clients to help them shred away more body fat, unlock heroic strength, and just look better naked. So if you want to unlock strength or just look better naked in the mirror, head over again, grab those 7 principles of fat loss, and start following those today. All right, guys, I have a great episode for you today. I have a fantastic guest, the one and only David Dellanave. He was one of the hosts and creators of Man Camp, not to mention one of the masters of biofeedback training, as well as a fantastic writer and a very good friend. Comes on the show today. We're going to talk about biofeedback training. We're going to talk about deadlifts, Man Camp and all the cool stuff, and a lot of other really, really interesting things. David is kind of a jack of all trades. If Google wasn't around, David would basically know how to do everything in the world. Okay, I exaggerate, but he's pretty good at figuring out how to do stuff that he's interested in, or finding a way to make a bed or start skydiving or whatever other crazy things he wants to do. Before we get into that, just want to let you know, 2017, you know that, is on its way. 2016 is on its way out, but I do have a few slots open in my coaching, one-on-one coaching program. So if you want to apply, if you're looking to get leaner and stronger before this year ends, or you want to gain some really good lean muscle this winter and put on some size, or maybe you just want to get stronger, you just want to feel better and look better and feel more awesome, unlocking the superhero physique that you have hidden underneath, or I don't know, whatever your goals could be, head over to sidequestfitness.com/coach and apply for my coaching program. And join the other Hall of Heroes, the awesome other people who have gotten tons of gains, shredded fat, leveled up their strength, and moved and leveled up in their pursuit of health and fitness. So I do have a few slots left open. Head over there and check it out. sidequestfitness.com/coach, or you can find it there at sidequestfitness.com. But without further ado, let's get into this episode. Let's hear from David Dellanave and uncover some of the really cool things we talked about when I was recently in Austin, Texas for Man Camp.
Step up and you gotta get it fitness. Host Rob at the moment and the quest is you gotta check it and wreck it. You're breaking personal records, and with the help of the guests you won't be guessing on the lessons. That's a +5 fierce. Got a low-key bamf right here. You wanna meet him, there's no better way to greet him than to strike a boss pose. Take a look into the mirror.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. As I mentioned in the intro, I have a fantastic guest for you today. One of the guys that I have followed in the industry for a very, very long time. He has basically what I like to consider the Jedi mind trick for your body when it comes to training. He probably writes more about biofeedback than anyone else. I had no idea what it was until I met him in Kansas City almost 2 years ago. and went through a little test that he did, and I felt like I was sitting in the presence of a modern Jedi. It was amazing, and I use it from time to time in my own training, so it does work and it does help when I'm not wanting to be an egotistical moron, and I'm like, oh no, I'm totally going to like conventional deadlift today, even though my body is telling me not to. But it is great. But he was the host and one of the creators of Man Camp, which I went to a few weeks ago, and I wanted to get him on the show. I wanted to get him on the show for a while, but he's kind of a jack of all trades, and I wasn't sure what to ask him. And then at Man Camp, he spoke on some things, and I was like, all right, now I know what to talk to Dave about. But the one and the only David Dellanave, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me. That's a really good way to put the biofeedback stuff, the Jedi mind trick. It's very much like that.
Because like I read about it when I started to get into things, and Roman has written things about it, and I'm reading about it, and I'm like I can understand the instructions for how to do a pull up. Cool. But I'm like, with this, like, it's like, I just touch my toes. Like that there's gotta be, I'm missing something. There's a missing link in this. And then
everyone always does that. They overcomplicate it. And I mean, like the first reaction is, this is bullshit. And then the second reaction is like, well, there's gotta be more to it. I must not be understanding. And really, like, ultimately it's as simple as it's kind of like, freeing your mind and just letting it happen, I guess.
Yeah. So for someone who might not know, and they might be listening right now going, what the hell is biofeedback? Can you just give a quick glance or, an overview of what biofeedback is and how it can apply to training?
Yeah, absolutely. So the basic idea is we want to quantify our body's reaction to, in this case, exercise, right? So we want to know, is something we're going to do going to make us better or worse before we even do it? And that way we can only do the things that make us better and not do the things that make us worse. Everybody's had that experience where they go in the gym fired up for deadlift day and it goes like shit and they leave the gym feeling like shit. At best, it was just kind of a crummy workout where they didn't hit what they wanted to hit. And at worst, they tweak something or hurt something and they walk away from the gym with something they need to heal up for a couple of weeks and not lift from. So the idea is to use the body's feedback. In this case, a lot of times we use range of motion, and you're basically just using range of motion as a way to kind of quantify the nervous system state and the reaction to stimulus. So if you're super healthy, like this, that's why like you probably don't need to use it very often. Like you're healthy, you're functional, everything works. Not a lot of movements cause you pain. So you can pretty much do whatever you want. But somebody for whom maybe deadlifts tend to cause them pain, or they've got some shoulder issues that cause them, problems with certain movements, biofeedback can be a game changer in terms of finding exactly what's going to work on a daily basis and allowing them to move forward productively.
Awesome. I'll link this in the show notes for some of the stuff that you've written on it as well. But so like when you say sort of like in the shoulders, so it makes sense when you're deadlifting, because the idea is that you're going to go down and touch your toes in sort of the same hip hinge motion. And then you might, wherever you feel tight, then maybe do some bodyweight squats, test again, see if you get a little further in reach. If not, test it with like a sumo stance and see how you fare. And if you get lower in that, then go sumo. How would you do it for like an overhead press sort of thing? Because that is something that like right now I kind of suffer with from being internally rotated while trying to write for like 8 hours a day.
So actually you would do the exact same thing. The thing about range of motion is that it's global. So any change in the state of your body is going to affect your range of motion in all of your ranges, like in the whole body. The only distinction is that sometimes the range of motion, for lack of a better phrase, the range of the range is pretty set and it doesn't change a lot. And that's why I usually recommend that almost everyone use the toe touch, because there's a huge difference between like your resting baseline toe touch, where like most people can't even touch their toes. And when you start doing some good movement that gets your body kind of in a better state, most people can, touch their toes or beyond, like palms flat on the floor kind of thing. But it's actually exactly the same. So like for you, you might test a bilateral overhead movement, because that's what your ideal movement would be, like a barbell military press. But if that doesn't test well, you might switch over to a one arm movement, or you might even do variations within that. Like you might go from barbell military press to one arm push press. Totally different thing, but you're still able to work that overhead pattern and overload it in a different way.
Okay. All right. I got you. So people may not know who you are, David. If they don't, obviously they don't read enough on the internet, in my opinion. But
or they read the right.
Stop it. You're a good writer. I don't want to hear it. But you didn't start in fitness. Like, I know your backstory. Like you went to college, you created a program selling ringtones back in the day. It's so interesting. As I get older, I'm going to say these things and people are going to be like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, no, it definitely goes back.
So how did you get into fitness, and what really spurred you to get into that from where you started?
So I, probably like a lot of your listeners, like I didn't grow up lifting. I didn't lift in high school. I played sports, but I never went to the weight room. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't start lifting until later, like more in college. And it was one of those things where the more I did it, the more passionate I got about it. The more I learned, the more I wanted to like teach other people stuff. I got into what I consider like pretty raw kind of lifting stuff. Like I got into barbells and kettlebells, whereas a lot of people come through more of like the classic, like Men's Health, more machine focused approach. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I got into kind of the raw shit really early on, with like Pavel and Dragon Door and all that stuff. Yeah. I just kind of had a transition where I went from not lifting at all, being in sort of the online marketing and technology and software development space, to being more and more passionate about health, fitness, improving your body, improving your state of being in general. So I just sort of like transitioned away from that and into owning a gym and fitness.
What was the first step? Like, what made you think, I want to buy a gym? Is it sort of like, because every guy like in their 20s when they're at the bar is like, dude, we should own a bar. Like that scene in How I Met Your Mother. It's totally true, because everyone's had that thing with like, oh, it would be the greatest thing ever.
It'd be cool. Every night we just like go to our own bar and like sit in the corner of the bar and watch everybody and buy people. Yeah, exactly.
And I know that like at some point everyone who gets into fitness is like, oh man, it'd be so cool to own a gym. There's always a lot more to it. When did you decide to make that jump?
Well, I'll admit, like I had this naive belief that I truly, the number one reason that I started the gym was, and I started it with a partner, but he like dissolved out of it within like the first 3 months, basically. I started it with the naive belief that if I showed people how easy and productive training could be, because really it can be, like, yeah, I mean, you obviously have to do some hard work, but ultimately it is pretty simple. You just show up, you be consistent, you don't get hurt. Biofeedback was like still is a huge component of that, but I thought it was going to be like the game-changing component that as soon as I showed people this, they were going to be like, oh, I definitely want to spend 5 hours a week, lifting. And, I was wrong. I was naive about that. Like that isn't, one little like hook is not enough. Even if it really truly is a game changer, it's still not all of it. But honestly, that's why I wanted to start a gym, is because I believed that I could just show people how easy it would be and they would just be like totally hooked for life. And I think that's kind of a process that every lifter goes through, where they're like, oh, I get this now. I want to teach other people who don't get it because, I want them to reap all these benefits. And most of them don't do what I do with things, which is go all out, and like open a gym. They just think of it as a nice thought, which maybe sometimes is better, but that's not how I do things.
Speaking of that, of you going all out, this is one of the reasons I've always enjoyed following you in like social and everything that you do, because you're always doing something new. Like you're like, oh, I want to make a Murphy bed. Like I want to construct this, and then you just do it. And this is sort of going into what you talked about at Man Camp, but
yeah,
you know, I want to go into that sort of, what have you always been like that, even as a kid, where you like, I want to know how to do this, and then you just throw yourself all in?
Yeah, like always. Like I just very, very intense curiosity, intense desire to take things apart, build them. I mean, that's just been me from day one. And then. So there's a couple, like, as with all things in life, there are a bunch of little flukes that on their own wouldn't really have any significance, but when you put them all together, they sort of create something. And so like when I was young, I had this intense curiosity. But then also throughout basically starting, like, I'm not exaggerating, starting in elementary school, I was essentially like the full service IT department for a pretty large company in my hometown of Rochester, Minnesota. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was literally like the IT department. So I was making really good money. And again, I'm not exaggerating, like from elementary school on. I remember walking from my elementary school across the highway to the place that I worked. So we're talking 5th grade, 6th grade, maybe even 4th grade. And I was making like good money. I think it was like $20 an hour, which, you know, in the mid 90s is pretty fucking good money. Like that's still
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's still more than minimum wage now. And so I was making really good money, and my parents wouldn't, I guess this didn't really come into play until a little bit later, but my parents wouldn't let me purchase a car when I was 16. So what would have normally sucked up a lot of like a 16-year-old's money would have been a car. I spent it on buying like gadgets and things that I could like build, or things that I could use to build things. You know what I mean? Like I would spend all of that money that I made on stuff like computer hardware, electronics parts, and so on and so forth. So the intense curiosity coupled with the finances to be able to like pursue them, and a dad who like taught me a lot of basic skills and like kind of fueled that curiosity. You know, when he lived in Italy before they came here, he owned an auto mechanics shop. So like I had all the right ingredients to really like kind of be a little bit of a polymath, a Renaissance man, and pursue lots of different interests.
All right, so I have to ask, you're in 5th grade making $20 an hour as like basically you said, literally the IT department for this company. I'm in 5th grade and like freaking out because I finally see a pube. Like I'm like, woo, adulthood. And you're out here like actually like learning way more and have more brain power than I have. How in the world, like where did you like in 3rd or 4th grade, were you like finding this stuff out online? How did you do this as like a 10 and 11-year-old?
You know, I don't remember how I got that initial introduction. I'd have to ask my mom. She remembers stuff like that. But the initial introduction came through the guy who was supposed to be the IT department there, but he had like a completely different role in the company. And you got to understand, like, dude, we're talking it would have been like mid to maybe late 90s. Like this is truly like internet being a major thing. Like I actually set up their original system for each person at that company to have an email address. So we're talking pre-email, pre-internet. This was the time, a lot of your listeners will probably recognize this, where it was most economical to build your own PCs from parts.
Yeah.
And so that's actually how we started out. So I don't remember how I got the initial intro, but the very first thing I started doing there was so they were a nonprofit, so they'd get a lot of donations from the community, and being in a town of IBM and Mayo, they would get like pallets of computers, but some of them wouldn't work. So I would swap like a video card from one into, you know, the motherboard of another one. And I would build like one out of maybe 5. And then eventually we started building them by ordering like motherboard, CPU parts, because it was just so much cheaper then. And nobody would understand that now. But at the time, that was pre like Dell creating very inexpensive, like built to order computers. So I started doing that, and it was just one of those things where, like I've always done, like I got my foot in the door, and then I was like, hey, I could also set up everybody with an email address. Okay, let's do that. Hey, I could set up, you know, a file server where everybody could share files and blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And the responsibilities and the stuff that I was in charge of just grew. And of course, everyone was highly amused by the 13-year-old or whatever, you know, IT guy. But they also were like, damn, he gets shit done. Like, he can fix anything. So I don't know, man. Like, I really liked solving problems and like building things, even if they were like, you know, like technology, not literally building, but like figuratively building out technology. And of course I loved making money. Like I loved making like crazy cash from this. My friends were working at the supermarket for like $3 an hour bagging groceries, you know, and I was stacking cash.
I'm just like, honestly, like I had never known that you had done this. So I'm still amazed thinking that like, here I was still reading comics and like trying to figure out what I want to do in my life. Like, and you're actually physically doing things. Like I'm on sort of information overload, or really I'm just obsessed with like AOL chat rooms. I'm like, oh my God, I can chat with people.
I mean, I did that shit too. Make no mistake. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think of it as like as any kind of like moral superiority or anything like that. It's just like, that's what I was interested in, you know? And like, I wasn't super well. Again, with the factors that influence things, like my parents wouldn't buy me video games, and nor would they allow me to. It was only until way later on when I could like buy, you know, have enough cash to like go buy a PlayStation and hide it under my bed, was I able to do stuff like that, you know? Yeah. So like, don't have video games, you have this intense curiosity, you have this ability to make money. I mean, it's just like a bunch of things that some of them I controlled and some I didn't. This is funny, though. I actually have never talked about this on a podcast before. We've talked about the various little businesses that I've had along the way, but I never have thought about it in this way, like what fueled that ability and interest in doing things. And really, like that's where it started.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up. Like, you know, my parents my dad refused to spend $50 on a video game. He would spend $3 to let me rent a game for like 3 days, which, you know, meant either I had to like stay up all night and play it, or, you know, I had to rent it like 3 or 4 times to try and beat it.
That's hilarious. Dude, I remember that too, though. Like every once in a while, maybe for like a birthday, my mom would let me rent like the NES from the local video store, and I would just fucking go ape shit all weekend playing it. You know, yeah. And I think when you do that with a kid, you go one of 2 ways. Like either you fuel an intense interest for life, like it did with you, where you just now you love it because you have access to it, or you fuel kind of a disinterest. And that's how it went for me. Like I'm just not that into video games, you know? Yeah. Like I was sick last week, like we talked about, and I went out. Dude, this is another topic that fucking pisses me off, but like I dug my Xbox 360 out, and it took like 4 hours before I could actually play anything because it had to do all these updates, and then the update wouldn't work and all this bullshit. Like, who buys this crap?
I mean, people who are going to play it all the time, and they update, like they put it on an auto update, and then it updates while you're asleep.
Oh, fuck off, man. Like, if I want to take the thing out of the closet, I don't care about any updates. I want to turn the goddamn thing on. That's the whole point of a console. Is that I can just turn it on and play, not wait 3 fucking hours because it has to update.
I'm with you on that. Then that's the thing with like the internet, is that now that because Microsoft about 3 or 4 years ago, and this is something they're trying to do, even though they're going to put out supposedly new hardware every 3 years now, is that they want to update everything via software. Well, that's great, but when your updates are 2 gigs and I'm still on a 30 meg download, it's going to take an hour for 2 hours for that to completely download. So yeah, it's obnoxious. And I agree on that. I wish that like that wasn't the case, because I can pull my 64 out and play it whenever I want.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. I think I have a 64 around here. I should have just whipped that out. At least that would work. I'm bitter.
I don't blame you. I totally stand behind that. Like, that's the, that's why cartridges are great and CDs are great, but now everything's moving to where you can just download the game online. Well, that's great, but if I'm not connected to the internet, is it going to work?
Yeah.
And then, like, I've got to be connected for certain things. Yeah, there's, that's why I loved consoles, and I know PCers will be like, I love PC. I'm like, well, nowadays you can't play a PC game unless you are connected online.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got to imagine, though, that the ability to update it has to be the demise of perfection, though, right? Because if you know that once you ship that ROM, you're not going to be able to make changes to it, you're going to make damn sure that it's absolutely flawless. Right?
You're not lying on that, and that's been a lot of issues with Ubisoft in the last couple of years with, like, Assassin's Creed. When they released Unity on the Xbox One, it was so broken no one could play it.
Yeah, right. It's like, fuck it, just ship a bootloader. We'll send all the updates over the air. And
like,
that doesn't go well. And
I just thought of this as well. Just last week, they released Gears of War 4. It had a 1.2 gigabyte update, like, patch the day of. Like, you're releasing a patch the day of? Like, come on. Like,
well, not to mention, you think about guys, like, I know a lot of the guys, I've, friends overseas over the years, in the military, and they love video gaming. Do you think they can download a 1.2 gig update over their fucking, forward operating base's shitty satellite link? Hell no.
No. Yeah. Well, and that's, the former head of Microsoft Games got into a huge shitstorm a couple of years ago because someone asked him that question when the Xbox One was set up to be like a PC. It was going to be like, they were going to give you Steam for consoles and you had to be connected for games. And they were like, well, what if you're on, like, a sub and you're not connected to the internet? He's like, you can buy an Xbox 360. Oh. Dude was tanked. He was tanked 48 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I agree with that, and that's stuff that really ticks me off as a gamer, because I'm like, I'm spending $60 on a game that you have to patch, like, 2 days after it comes out. Like, come on.
Like, strive for perfection, man. Ship it perfect.
Yeah. So, speaking of being a sort of a jack of all trades, so you you built computers and made a lot of money. You went to college. You created some software stuff. You got into fitness. You put out some really great fitness products. On your own, as well as with your wife, Jen Sinkler. And, now you built a bed. Like, that's the last thing you sort of did, which is really cool. And I finally saw it come down online. Do you have, like, one trade that you consider your strongest?
I kind of do think my strongest trait is that ability to essentially, like, take in and assimilate and act on new information. I really, like, I am never, ever going to be the best in the world at anything. I'm just not. But I'm very, very good at learning enough to be able to get my hands dirty with something new and then, like, be able to do it. And I always get that whole, we talked about this at Man Camp, like, how do you know how to do that? And I'm like, well, I didn't until 4 hours ago, and I connected to the internet and fucking downloaded everything into my brain, like in the Matrix, and now I can. And I'm never going to be the best at it, but I'm good enough to, like, make something cool or, make something new.
Do you think if it wasn't for the internet, you would be like the old guy who has a shed and just has a bunch of tinkering toys that, like, you played with? Like, if you weren't able to really find out how to do stuff, like, you would just have stuff all over the place because you're tinkering and trying to figure it out?
100%. I mean, there's nothing more exciting to me than walking into the type of situation that you're describing right now, where there's just, like, tons of, like, tools and like a basement or a shed full of junk and gadgets and tools and things is, like, my, like, heaven. I just walk in and I, like, start looking around and playing with stuff. Yeah. No, that's exactly who I would be.
All right. So let's go into Man Camp a little bit. First, I want to say thank you to you and John for putting Man Camp on. I really enjoyed it. Getting to meet a lot of people. And then I wrote 3,000 words on it, so obviously I enjoyed it. But where did the idea come from? And I know you guys talked about it, that it kind of stimulated over a few years, but where did you guys develop it, and why did you decide to finally do it?
Well, I'd be lying if I said that it was driven by anything other than like John said, intense jealousy and arrogance that our wives did. So, all right, just to give the full picture, because maybe people don't know. So I'm married to Jen Sinkler, who has like an amazing online fitness presence, mainly for women, but she's fairly gender neutral. She has a program called Lift Weights Faster. She actually is the one who coined the term like lift weights faster instead of cardio. John, as your readers may know, is married to Nagar Fanouni, who's like a kettlebell Wonder Woman, and she's like got a huge audience of women. And then their friend Jill Coleman, the three of them host a retreat called Radiance Retreat, and they've done four or five of them now. So when they planned the very first one, John and I are like, well, we can do a fucking man camp. Like, why, if you can do a women's group, do a man camp. And then like 3 years have gone by. They've done 4 or 5 of them. And we finally were like, all right, seriously. I was like, John, I'm calling a hotel right now in Austin, and I'm like putting down a $6,000 reservation, and we're picking a date and we're doing it. Because we just like, got way too distracted letting perfect be the enemy of good and didn't make it happen. But that was the genesis. But obviously the purpose of it is different than why we originally did it. The purpose is really the same reason that they did it. It's to bring men together in and this is hilarious, safe space to talk about issues that affect us. So that might be, it might be training. It might be like Jade talked about, like hormones and like sexual function. And it may be like emotional and relationship stuff. And it's stuff that honestly men don't talk about enough. There's this perception that stuff is for women and it's too touchy-feely and it's not masculine and it's bullshit. And I think that does men a huge disservice. Like, dude, we have emotions too, and we have needs, and we have relationship hang-ups, and on and on. And we need to work through that stuff just as much as women do. So I think it's a really important thing. And I think that restricting it to men made it, we can jokingly call it a safe space, but I think the reality is things were shared that probably wouldn't have been if there were women in the room, because that just, it changes the dynamic.
It does. I agree. And I think I just finished one of the books today that you guys gave us. And I think it would have been interesting to see women's reactions to some of those books if they had known them. Right. You know, and it might have changed how some men would have read that book or would have felt about having that book. But no, I think you're
Which
right
one
on
did you
that. Men Explain Things to Me.
Oh yeah, amazing, right?
So good. My wife has opened my eyes up to a lot of the stupid shenanigans that either I've not noticed with certain interactions between us or between other people in my life. Sure. And that book even opened up a few more. I was like, oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's good because
no. I mean, no, just to clarify, I mean, when you read that stuff and it opens your eyes to it as a man, you're kind of like, ooh, sorry about that. Like, I wish I had been, right? Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt. Like just so much. And even small things I picked up in a recent conversation over lunch with my parents, like where my dad said something and reacted to my mom. And I was like, you just basically, you said one thing and then you reacted differently. You just negated everything you just said to her. Like, you know, you gotta watch those things. But what I enjoyed about it and what I loved about it is that it wasn't just like, you know, it wasn't just men being men. Like there was a point to discovering how to be, a better man in today's world. And how would you what are some of the failings you think or the the trip ups or the misgivings that men have in today's world, things that like we should think about that can make us better men.
Okay. I think one of the fundamental pillars, and this is actually kind of what I'm working on the most right now, is like figuring out a map and a model for this. I think one of the fundamental pillars is this human form that we take and not like taking the best care of it we possibly can. You and I obviously are in fitness. Our listeners are probably in fitness or just getting into it. So now they already have that interest, but the vast majority out there don't. And men and women, but we're talking about men here, are physically weaker than they have ever been. Like they are literally more fragile. If you talk to an ER doc, they're seeing more and more injuries that aren't even, they're not even concomitant with the insult. So like you'll have a kid who like falls off, the playground and should have maybe sprained an ankle or a wrist, and they like shattered their femur. It shouldn't be happening. So the taking care of the physical form is probably the first thing. We just don't take good enough care of ourselves, and that's part training, part nutrition, part sleeping. I'm huge on sleep, and everybody thinks it's so cool, especially guys, to talk about how little they sleep. That's fucking stupid. You should sleep more, and you should be proud of it, because it's basically when your it's when your hit points recharge. Yeah, exactly. Like super crucial. So that's the first thing. And then I really think the second biggest failing is like in sort of like the emotional and relationship realm. I think that we have been told by pop culture that men aren't emotional and shouldn't be, because that's, being a pussy or not, that's feminine or whatever. And that we don't like have like relationship needs. So we're sort of just these, I don't know what they they tell us what we aren't, but they don't tell us what we should be or are. So we're these automatons that just, I guess, go through life with no emotion and no feeling. So I think there's a lot of room to work on the emotional spectrum there, and figuring out what it is we're feeling and needing and wanting at any time, and then working that into relationships. Like I wrote this article about man plementing, which is a term that I think I coined, where a guy just gives like a genuine, real compliment to another guy. And it's just not something that you like see much of. It's like, dude, that suit looks really good on you. I like the cut. Oh, why are you being so gay, man? Like that's the kind of stuff you hear, or you don't hear the compliment at all because of the reaction. And I think that there's a lot of room for improvement there. I think guys rely on the, like making fun of each other way too much. And I think we all kind of walk away from those interactions being like, man, that didn't feel that great ultimately.
Yeah. I did that recently. And, after like 10 minutes later, I was like, oh, that was stupid. That was juvenile and sophomoric.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what's the best man plement you've ever received?
Oh, dude, I don't know. I don't know, but I will tell you that I really enjoy spending time around guys like JT and John, that are a little bit like next level with this stuff, because they're not afraid to be like, like, bro, I can't even think of anything right now. I'm that off the cuff, but just like genuine compliments. And it really like means a lot.
Yeah. I think that's, I know you posted about that, and you put it on Facebook as well. And I was like, you know what, that's a good point, because I remember reading a Dennis Leary book a few years ago. And, he was talking about, with guys, we always like, we never call each other by their first names. It's never like David or John. It's always like Roman or Dellanave or Farlow or like Bays. It's like always someone's last name. Like you never call them by their first name. So Tanner and I jokingly started doing that in Austin. But in that same chapter, he's like, most guys, like we have nicknames for each other, or we insult each other. And as I thought about that, when you brought it up in man plementing, I was like, I can think of all the times that like I genuinely thought that like, hey, dude, that shirt looks really good. But instead of saying, hey, that looked really good, I gave someone like an offhanded, snide remark.
For sure.
Like they knew it was humor, but like, why am I so afraid to be like, hey, dude, seriously, that shirt is awesome?
Yeah. I don't know, because of like, I think kind of a broken popular culture.
Yeah.
Like our culture is legitimately troubled. Like, I don't think that this is a bad country. I think this is a great country. And I think that there's nowhere else in the world that I would really rather live, like looking at the net big picture. But culturally, we have some big fucking issues when a borderline like tyrant can rise to power, basically on the backs of people alone and scared and fearful and feeling empty and just looking for something to attach themselves. Like we got some issues to work on.
Yeah. And then so much more than that as well that's happened in the last, year, or so. And I think that was the one thing I really enjoyed about Man Camp is that you guys are trying to teach us how, or not really teach, but explore the issues of, we don't want to be our fathers. We don't want to be our grandfathers. We're beyond that. Like we don't want to be Archie Bunkers. Like we grew up around that, but we know we're better than that, but we still find ourselves drawn to that world. And I know you and John both, call yourselves feminists. And that's one of the questions I had, as I was reading through Men Explain Things to Me and through listening to you and John and other people talk, like, why are we afraid of that word as men?
Honestly, we're afraid of it because there's been spin to demonize it and diminish it and take the power away from it. That's the only reason. Anytime somebody says, well, I think that the problem is that the word feminist means a certain thing and people don't want to be associated with that sort of like militant hating men. Dude, that is bullshit. Like that is no different than saying, the problem with Islam is that it makes people militant and radical and it makes them into terrorists. No, it fucking doesn't. There's a tiny, tiny sector of tiny little piece of that population that uses that as an excuse. It's the exact thing. So there's been this FUD campaign against feminism to diminish the power of it. And it works. It works because then people are like, yeah, well, no, I mean, I believe that women should just, receive equal treatment, but I just don't call myself a feminist. Well, then you're a fucking moron because that is what a feminist means. And only in, tiny circles does it mean something more extreme than that.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that because that was, I don't talk about those things like online. But like you see it in things like, with atheism or religion, like I'm an atheist, but I don't like consider myself someone who like, I love people. I'm compassionate, but then you're always framed as like, oh, you're a heartless devil. I know there are tons of atheists who give millions of dollars to charity every year. Like, we focus on a small thing and then we say that, oh, well, everyone is like this. And I think, again, culturally, that's something we fail on, through politics, race, religion, whatever. And then we find ourselves in these problem areas where, it's so easy to believe things that aren't true. And then we just cause more issues.
There's a huge lack of empathy, right?
Yeah.
And like, far be it for me, who's somebody probably on the autism spectrum, to lecture about empathy because it's one of the big things I have to work on. But because I have to work on it, makes me even more aware of it. Like, there's a huge lack of it, man. Like, something like only 30% of Americans have ever left the country, and God knows what percentage of those went to Cancun for spring break. Like, you need to get out there and see how and where other people are living and what their lives are like to be able to, even start to understand them.
Well, and I grew up in North Carolina where I know people that never left the state.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You've
or
never
their
left your own
hometown.
Yeah. Like you can't understand America if you don't experience and go, other places. Like it's weird to be raised in the South and you think that the North is all the same. No, let me tell you this. Vermont and New Hampshire are very much like a lot of the South I grew up around. People driving around in trucks, listening to Leonard Skinner and country music. Like, it feels like home. There's just certain things that don't fly in that area that, you know, make it stand out a bit. But it's like it's so similar.
And, you know, and by the way, like, I want to be clear, this isn't a criticism or an indictment. There's nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is that, you know, inform like your sort of views based on that. Like, maybe if I haven't left my hometown, I shouldn't speak about what is wrong with the country or wrong with the world, because I have no fucking clue what's going on outside of this, you know, super insular community. Right. You know, that's all I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with it. If you don't leave your hometown your whole entire life, like, great. But then maybe don't vote for president, because you have no fucking idea what decisions need to be made on a global scale.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, I mean, personally, I love traveling, and I think it's opened me up to a lot of things that I would have never experienced otherwise. For sure. And that's just, you know, like you, David, I have always wanted to learn as much as I could. So like travel has always been something I wanted to do. You know, and like talking with my dad's like, oh man, I wish I could do what you do. You know, I wish I could go to Scotland or like go to Colorado or I'm like, why don't you? Like, you're the only person stopping yourself. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, let's get into a couple.
I think you like Ramit Sethi too. He talks about invisible scripts. A lot of people stop themselves because of scripts. Like, well, I can't because fill in the blank. And it's all the same sort of excuses. But really, if you examine them, you find that they kind of don't hold up to scrutiny.
No, that happens with everything. It's oh man, that right there brings up a lot of things, but I'll avoid it for right now.
We'll do another one on that topic alone.
Yeah. So let's go to a couple of fun questions, and then we'll come back and talk a little fitness and a little more about you learning everything in the world and being a jack of all trades. Dave, if you could go anywhere in a time machine, where would you go?
Oh, good question. I'd probably go to like the Da Vinci period of the Renaissance. I mean, I would literally go to like Da Vinci's workshop during the Renaissance.
Would you have done like if you were a modern Da Vinci, would you have done like Da Vinci and like basically foiled your own design so that like no one could use them for evil?
I don't know. I wouldn't reveal my secrets.
I like it. What's the last new thing you've tried?
Okay, so more recently than the Murphy bed, I wanted to paint a cabinet, like a metal cabinet that was the wrong color. I wanted it to be a different color. So I basically learned all about like automotive paints, and I built a cross flow. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God. A cross flow paint booth in my garage so that I could paint using like super highly toxic professional paints. And I painted this cabinet, and it looks dope.
You told me about that in Austin. I was just like, seriously, I'm not going to Google anything anymore. I'm just going to like Dellanave it. Just be like, Dave, how do I do this? He knows how to do it.
I'm getting there.
If your life were a movie, what would the title be, and who would play David Dellanave?
Oh, dude, I'm so not a movie guy. I don't know. I guess it would be Tom Cruise, because Top Gun is probably like one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know what the title would be, man. That's a tricky one. That's not a good question for me. I'm not a movie guy, but it would be Tom Cruise.
All right.
Because
all right. So last one before we go back into fitnessy stuff. If you could write a note to your younger self, what would you say in only 2 words?
Oh shit. 2 words?
Yeah.
Buy stock. Well, let's see. It would probably be like buy Apple or buy Dell or something like that.
Okay. All right.
Because they've increased so much that would like totally give me potential to do other things if I had invested even earlier on. I've been an Apple shareholder since like the 80s, but if I had done that even sooner in a larger amount, that'd be pretty fucking crazy.
True. You'd be like, I can just do whatever because I got Apple stock.
Dude, someone's going to listen to this podcast and be like, fucking Dellanave was able to tell himself something from the future and he told himself to buy stock. What a douchebag.
It's not a douchebag thing. Like it's money that like, if you knew, listen, if the guy in Hot Tub Time Machine went back in time so he could invent Lugal, come on. Like you wouldn't, I would totally go back in time and make Google my own thing.
I just said in 2 words. I can't think of any order that I could tell myself that would be. So, all right, moving on.
All right. So we've touched a lot on your propensity to learn new things and do new projects. You know, you built the Murphy bed, and then you did this automotive paint job on this metal cabinet. What's the scariest thing that you've wanted to learn or do but haven't done yet?
Dude, I don't know. I'm not really.
Fear doesn't keep you from doing stuff?
No, it doesn't. And I hope that doesn't sound super douchey, but like,
no.
That's not something that really holds me back. And not even in like the extreme sports kind of fear. Like doing something like improv is terrifying to me, but the only thing that has kept me from doing it is honestly just like, momentum. I just, you know what I mean? Like I just haven't done it yet, but I definitely will. So, I don't think that applies to me really.
Okay. I mean, you jump out of airplanes, so most people would be terrified of that.
It's true.
How did you get into that, by the way? Was it just like one of those things you were like, I want to learn how to do this, and then you learned how to do it, and you're like, I really fucking like this?
Yep, that's honestly it. I lived with one of my best friends for years, like in college and after college, and then one year I was like, dude, it was in the spring. I was like, dude, we should start skydiving. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Well, it just never happened because getting 2 people to do anything is always harder than 1. So the whole year went by. And then that next spring, I was like, all right, I'm not going to ask him to do it this time. I'm just going to do it. And I did. I just like went out to the drop zone and started jumping and haven't looked back because it's like one of my favorite things to do in the world.
Oh, man. Someday I'm going to do it. Did you ever think about doing the wingsuit, or have you done the wingsuit?
I haven't. So you need 200 jumps to be able to start wingsuiting. I've got over 700. Honestly, I just don't have any interest in it. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand about skydiving is that it's kind of like lifting weights, right? There's tons of different disciplines. You could be a bodybuilder. You could be a power lifter. You could be a weightlifter. You could be any number of things. It's the same way with skydiving, and I've gone very deeply into a different discipline, so I'm just not interested in wingsuiting.
I got you. I don't like skydiving. I think I could do the wingsuiting thing. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, just to clarify one thing, wingsuiting from an airplane is extremely safe. Like it's no more or less dangerous than skydiving.
Right.
Wingsuiting, where you're doing what's called proximity flying or proximity base jumping, is extraordinarily dangerous to the point where the fatality ratio is like 1 in 10. So that's when you're basically jumping off of a cliff and then flying your wingsuit within, meters of the cliff walls. That shit is so dangerous. You're virtually guaranteed to die. It's only a matter of when. And that's something that not only would it be ridiculous for me to be like, oh, I don't really want to do that. I would have to dedicate the next, several years of my life to building up the skill to even start doing that. So it's just not on my radar and never will be.
Yeah, I can't imagine the guys doing that. Like, you're right. Out of an airplane, maybe. Along the cliffs, like, it makes for great GoPro videos, but I don't know, man.
Nope. Friends,
I like waking up and having coffee in the morning.
Exactly. I'm friends with way too many skydivers, and I see like on a monthly basis, like, oh, blue skies, Johnny, like he was a good guy. I'm like, dude, fuck that.
Speaking of coffee, you are an espresso. Well, I don't know if I can say connoisseur, but what makes a good cup of coffee for you?
Okay. So the number one key, first thing, you got to have good beans. You got to have good beans, and they have to be fresh. So beans only last about realistically 2 to 3 weeks after they've been roasted, and then they only last literally like hours when they've been ground. So like if you're still buying ground coffee, stop doing that. Buy whole beans, get a grinder, and grind it yourself. So once you have good beans, honestly, you can make them in any number of ways. Or, you know, you can like make an espresso, or you can make an AeroPress or a pour over. And they all have pros and cons and pluses and minuses. And there's no right answer, but it all starts with good beans.
Okay. All right. Where is the best cup of coffee you've ever had? I mean, if there is such a thing.
All right, so I'm going to answer this in a two-parter. So actually, this coffee shop that is now down the street from me in Philly, like I just happened to get incredibly lucky, is like on point. The dude is super passionate about coffee. He's always got like different varietals and stuff, and he really knows how to prepare it. So it's like always awesome. Like he'll be like, "Hey David, I just got in this new bean. It's got some really awesome like blackberry notes." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. I want to try that." And he'll make me a shot, and he'll set it down, and he'll be like, all right, I want you to wait like 5 minutes to let it cool down, because when it's like, you know, like lukewarm, it's way more flavorful than when it's hot. I'm like, okay, so I wait 5 minutes, I drink it, and it's like fucking blackberry coffee. Like it's incredible. And there's nothing added to it. That's just the flavor notes of the beans. So he's super on point. But if somebody out there is like, man, I don't get coffee, like I think it all tastes the same or whatever, go find a coffee shop that is serving like a pour over or an AeroPress of an Ethiopia Yirgacheffe and get it. That is like that's like the region of beans, you know, like you have like kind of like wines, you have like Chianti, or you have Champagne or Montefalco, like any number of Barolo, any number of varietals that are made from a certain grade. Ethiopia Yirgacheffe is like the coffee bean that converts people into coffee aficionados. It's fruity, it's light, it's flavorful, it's got just a little bit of acid. It's the one coffee that people drink it and they go, oh, I get it. I've been drinking shit up until now. And then, and then you can expand your palate and like learn more about other ones. But that's the one that always changes the game for people.
Yeah, I that's. My wife was never a coffee drinker, and I was like, nope, no, you've been drinking the like ground stuff your dad has in a giant tin at home. That
it's brown water.
Yeah, that's all it is. So every time I go up there, you know, one of my life rules is I don't drink shitty coffee. I will buy coffee, and he's always like, oh, it's always nice when you come home. The coffee is so much better. And I'm like, well, you know. You could just not buy folders.
When Bonnie goes shopping, she buys shit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I don't, if people don't know you, they probably haven't seen it. But for a while online, you had a little bit of a character, that appeared in some blog articles or some videos, Dellanave. So I wanted to ask, where did that come from, and why has he sort of disappeared?
Dellanave say the story is very complex. It's basic make fun of Pavel Satsuin, basic. And so Dellanave go away because Dellanave has outlived purpose.
Okay.
That's basically why.
I got you. All right. I like it.
He'll come
back. It was hilarious just because like you put on this mustache and you could tell in the pictures that like immediately your body language got totally different.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's fun to get into character. If people haven't seen this, go to YouTube and look for the Dellanave say videos. I have to admit they're fucking hilarious. And honestly, I can't even take the credit for it. A good friend of mine is like a pretty talented video producer. He's actually done a bunch of videos for Atmosphere, and I think a couple other groups in the Twin Cities. And he produced them, and like his creativity was just like infused in all of it. So I can't even take all the credit for it, but they're really, really good. Just go on YouTube. There's a whole playlist, and it's basically like a whole story of my training philosophies. And I have to say it's pretty fucking funny.
I will. I'll have that in the show notes as well, so people can head over there and check it out. So Dave, your Man Camp was a success. I mean, I think it was a success. You and John felt that it was. So you're going to have another one next year in Philadelphia. What are some things you want to do next year at Man Camp, and what are some other areas that, and as time goes on, you know, things may change, but what are some other areas you want to explore, you know, with Man Camp?
Yeah, so good question. We learned a lot from hosting this one. We're going to have more interaction between the guys and less like people talking. So as you know, it was a pretty long day of like I think it was about 6 different talks from like 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m. And it was a lot. I think what we're going to do next time is actually spread everything out over 2 days. We might have 2 one morning, 2 the next morning, but then the rest of the day is going to be more hands-on stuff and more interaction. So I think that's going to be really cool. That'll provide both for more networking, but as well as like more, we'll be able to do more activities that will like challenge your way of thinking. Like we didn't do as much hands-on. In hindsight, we didn't do as much hands-on stuff as I would have liked. Like I really want everybody to challenge themselves and to like put some stuff out there that maybe they wouldn't have. And at the previous Man Camp, they were able to sort of sit back and just observe. Like I don't want anybody to even have the option to observe. They have to get in there.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as like actual activities, that I don't even know yet. I'm 99% sure we're going to host it right here in Philadelphia. So we're going to have to see like what the local topology provides for things that we can do. But I think guns are going to be involved again, but that'll probably be the only that is consistent. Everything else is going to change. And the other thing is, if it's going to be in Philadelphia, I want to take advantage of the incredible history here and the fact that our founding fathers like took a stand against tyranny right here. So I think we'll use that for sure.
I agree. I'll also have to run up some stairs and do some Rocky because you're in Philly.
For sure.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that was the one thing I will say that, I mean, I didn't help the cause. I probably should have like maybe had a little more balls and spoke up for a couple of things. But I will say I think that would be something that would help everyone, is having the ability to speak more and talk more about things that are on our minds. But I think again, it is something where you're challenging the status quo of, no guys, we just keep this inside. We don't talk about this stuff. Yeah. And then you've got to bring it out, and it's like, this is weird. I usually only talk about this stuff with like my best friend drunk around a campfire.
Yeah. That's the idea, man.
All right. Well, Dave, it's been awesome chatting. If people want to know more about you, if they want to get information on next year's Man Camp or when they can find out about it, where can they find you on social?
I'm super easy to find. I'm DDN on Twitter. I'm basically David Dellanave everywhere else. I'm public on like every social media network. So just hit me up. If you're going to friend me on Facebook, send me a message, because I don't add people I don't like know, even if I have 42,000 connections to them. But just like actually reach out. Otherwise, my Facebook page or whatever. But yeah, I'm really accessible. And my website is dellanave.com.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'll have all the links for that as well. So make sure you follow Dave. And of course me as well. I will be letting you know more about Man Camp as it gets ready, as it comes up next year. Is any idea on when it might be?
I'm thinking the exact same weekend. That's the plan. Yep.
Okay.
So something like September 15th.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So you guys got a few months to plan, but it's a great event for guys to go and check out. I enjoyed my time, and I know everyone there had a great time. So, Dave, thank you again so much for coming on.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Step up and you gotta get it fitness. Host Rob at the moment and the quest is you gotta check it and wreck it. You're breaking personal records, and with the help of the guests you won't be guessing on the lessons. That's a +5 fierce. Got a low-key bamf right here. You wanna meet him, there's no better way to greet him than to strike a boss pose. Take a look into the mirror.